It's like the Blair Witch, if things actually happened. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
I'm Michelle.
And I actually do really like the Blair Witch. I'm going to come in here right now and just say that I actually really like the Blair Witch film. But oh my god, this is the Blair Witch with things actually happening. Like, I can't avoid that is what this film is. We're still in viewer request week, and today's request comes from Toby Sama, and they requested The Ritual, which is a film up on Netflix. And this is kind of different for a viewer request week, because typically on viewer request week, we always pick films that either I haven't seen, or it's been a long time since I've seen them, so it'll be nice to go back and return to it. I saw this film like a year ago. But I loved it. I freaking love this film, and I never got a chance to talk about it. I always wanted to talk about it in a previous Thorgiween, never got a chance to. So this is great. This is an excellent opportunity for me to finally come in here and talk about this movie. What this film is about is that it is a group of friends. It's a British film. I don't know exactly where they're beginning in here, but it is definitely set in Britain. And it's a group of 5 friends. And our protagonist, he decides after a night of hanging out, he wants to go into this convenience store, get himself some alcohol. And it's never really touched on that much, but it is kind of hinted at that maybe he has an alcohol problem. Like his friends kind of look at him like, when he suggests going in there to get, and you don't know if it's just because they've all been out late or if they're just kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, man. But one of his friends does agree to go in there with him. And they go in there, and then the place ends up getting robbed. And his friend ends up getting killed in the process while he is hiding and just being out of sight. So now cut to like a year later, or not even a year later, but like several months down the line. And the friend who died, he always had this dream. He wanted to go and hike through this forest, through this mountain range in Switzerland. So they decide, you know what, you never got a chance to do it. We're all going to do it together. We're going to bring some of your possessions along, leave them there on that trail, just kind of be like, sort of the equivalent of scattering his ashes along the trail. So they get together and do that. But one of the friends, his knee got a little bit busted, so he's having trouble walking along, and they're looking at how much further they have to go to get to the lodge that they have to be at, and it's a good distance. So one of them is checking the map and goes, you know what, if we just take a direct line there, because this path, it has us basically making a big old half circle around to the lodge, going across this mountain range, but if we just go down there and go straight through the forest, we could be there in a day. 2 days, tops. That'd be way easier on your leg. So they decide to do that, and from there, it just becomes the Blair Witch. Except a little bit more serious. Like I said, I do really like the Blair Witch. I think the Blair Witch is a great slow burn. I think it's a great found footage film because I've always said, found footage films, it should kind of feel like, you're not really watching a horror movie until it's too late to escape the horror film. It should be a bunch of stuff like, huh, that's weird. What's that thing over there? And it should also be a lot of like just, random moments that don't really seem like they're all that important because found footage, it should feel like, the camera fell down, you picked this up, you're just seeing like the stream of consciousness that was recorded on there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of found footage films don't realize that's how they work these days. But this film, it's not found footage. It is like an actual regular shot film. And it is these characters then going through the woods and just one moment after another. And it's not really a slow burn. I mean, it is, but it's not things like, oh, that's a weird like little stack of rocks. Oh, look at that. Oh, hey, there's a twig up there in the trees. What could that thing be? No, one of the first things that they see is a deer carcass impaled on a tree.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're looking at that going, could that have been a bear? I don't know why a bear would, a bear could kill it, but I don't know why they would impale it on a tree. That's kind of freaky. Let's just keep going. So they keep going. And then the weather starts getting bad, they have to find shelter, and then all of a sudden there's a house, which again, it's just the Blair Witch. There's a house that they run into with some creepy shit in there. They go up to this house, and they go inside, and it's empty, but at the very top of this house, there is a wooden figure, but it is like a fully formed man with no head, just made entirely out of twigs, and it's got hands up here, but there's no actual hands, just the arms, but coming out of where the hand would be are like antlers. And they're looking at this thing going, what the fuck is this? but the storm is too bad outside. We can't leave. I mean, this is freaky, but we can't like sleep out there in the thunderstorm. So they have to now sleep inside this creepy ass house. And our protagonist, he starts having these weird ass dreams. He, like, there's flashes of lightning, and then all of a sudden it looks like it's daylight outside. And he gets up and walks outside. But now he's just walking into the convenience store. And they do this all throughout this film, where you keep seeing bits and pieces of the convenience store in the woods. But it's not like he just walked onto a set. It's like they took the walls of the convenience store and put them there inside this forest. Or there's like another moment in which he just sees like the fluorescent lights from the convenience store, but they're all hanging from branches. It's really imaginative. It's really dedication to how they were able to craft all these sets, of how they were able to set all this up. I mean, maybe it was special effects. Maybe it really was like, you know, they actually did shoot it on the set and they just put the trees inside there. Who knows? But man, I couldn't tell. It really looks great in here. So in other words, he has to keep reliving the moment where his friend died, and he keeps blaming himself for it. And again, he keeps talking, I mentioned how this film, it kind of hinted at the beginning that, yeah, maybe he does have a bit of an alcohol problem, but it never really comes back around, but it is really subtle. And one of the things that kind of hints at that is how he does keep blaming himself. Like, there is a moment in here in which they're freaking out about this, and they turn to the friend who has the limp, who has the busted up knee, and he goes, "We wouldn't even be in here if it wasn't for you." And then he points back at the protagonist and goes, "We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you." What the hell does that mean? Oh, you don't know what that means? And eventually they say, like, yeah, you should have helped fight. You should have helped, like, defend our friend. You should have helped take on the guy with the gun. But it also kind of has that extra layer of, yeah, if you didn't need a drink, we would not have been, like, it has that extra layer in there, too. And I dig that. I dig that they never get too far into that. But that it definitely is one of those things that, okay, you can tell there's some unspoken depth there. And that to me is always amazing whenever they're able to come in here with a film and give a layer to a story without ever really even having to say it out loud. I always love stuff like that. But as they're trapped out here in the woods, like, more things keep happening. Like, they keep finding markings on the trees. There's another moment in which they find another house in there. And I love that they kind of do the smart thing because they find all these weird carved up tree stumps leading up to the house. And you can tell they need help. They need to find another person. They need someone to talk to. They do not go in that house. They look at that and they just go, no, we're going to keep on going.
Nope.
This was after the first creepy house. They're done, which, again, nice, smart. But then they keep discovering other things. Like, they discover they discover someone's wallet out there and someone's old tent out there, and they just know, like, yeah, this person died. And these characters, they feel so human. It's not one of those films where everybody is 100% distinct. Like, there's one character in there who I keep looking at like, I don't really know what your personality is. You're just kind of bland. But the characters don't really need big, vibrant personalities because it's supposed to feel very realistic. And everybody acts very realistic in this situation. In a situation like this, everybody's individual personalities, little bits and pieces of it would be coming out. But it wouldn't be like, I'm the jokey guy in here. No, it wouldn't be stuff like that. Instead, everybody feels like, yeah, we're all kind of like tapped down, average human beings stuck in this situation, which makes it great for imagining how you and everyone that you know would be interacting in this situation. But there are those great moments of them panicking, of them just freaking out at their surroundings. I mean, there's like the moment after they find the person's wallet, and they just all have like that panic moment, and then one of them who's meant to be the most confident of the group, still he's not like, I'm the big hunky guy, but he is more of the slightly more adventurous guy. Like, they all have little hints of distinction between them, which again, I like. It makes it more realistic. But he's like, we're not going to be this. Listen, we know that the trail is right around here. We're not going to be these guys. The lodge is right over there. If we don't show up by 5 o'clock, they know that we were hiking there. They're going to send a search team for us. So I love seeing these people. They're freaking out, but they're trying. They're trying to come up with like a rationale to like, okay, let's just focus on this. Just pay attention to this thing. Just do this. Yeah. But this film, it does. I'm going into a little bit of spoilery stuff in here, a little bit. I'm not going to go like full spoiler on this. I'm not going to say like who dies or when they die or how they die, but people do start dying off, and it's one of those things where something is out there in the woods that's grabbing them.
Yeah.
And man, it is like that perfect level of mystery, and they keep hyping up what might be the thing out in the woods. They keep showing like a little thing move behind a tree. They keep hearing a sound way off in the distance. That's some big monster sound. I will go ahead and say this. Many times when you hype up a monster like that, when you finally get to the big reveal of what the monster is, it doesn't live up to the expectations. This is one of the best designed monsters I have ever seen in any movie. It is incredible what they did with this monster. Apparently, everything in here also is supposed to go back to Swedish mythology. Like all the carvings they're seeing, like all the wood statues that they're seeing, all the little markings on the trees, the actual monster itself. They're actually supposed to be things from mythology. I've never heard of any of this stuff, but I'm interested in finding out a little bit more, but seeing what all they changed for this, how much they actually did stay true to all the myths. But they eventually get to a point in which they end up discovering, there is a cult out there. I mean, there's a great moment in there in which they're running and they get to the top of a hill and they look out and they can see the lodge over there in the distance. So it isn't quite like Blair Witch where they're just trapped in a weird time loop where they can never escape. There is that hope of, okay, we just got one more hill to go over. We just got one more hill. And then they look out and they see little tiny lights all between them and the lodge in the woods. And man, that is such a great, oh, you're screwed moment. Oh, yeah, the thing that's been hunting you, it's there. But you do eventually find out this is some kind of a cult that is worshiping something out there in the woods, and they keep having to grab people and make sacrifices for this thing out there in the woods. And when you see the thing out there in the woods, it is, again, it's one of my favorite design monsters I've ever seen. There's no other way to put it. What it is, and again, I can describe this to you, it's not going to match what it actually looks like. You have to actually see this thing. What it is it is a giant deer, but it's 9-10 feet tall. However, the face of the deer is replaced by a human, and I don't mean it's a big deer and then the deer face is a man's face. I mean body of a deer, really big, not like one of those majestic, elegant deers. I mean a buck. I mean big ass shoulders, it actually has an angle going to its body in there.
Big chunk.
Yeah, big boy, big chungus. But then its actual head starts up normally, and it's got the antlers going up here as well. Although when you get a much closer look at it, you see its arms coming out holding antlers, kind of like that figure that they found. But so all this still kind of like a deer, but then once you get halfway down, where the snoot would be forming, where the eyes would start and everything. Then it turns into the torso of a human being, but it's not like a centaur where it's popping out and going upright. It's hanging down. It is hanging down with a big cloak over its head. So you never even see its face, you never even really see its body. You just see coming out of antlers up here, the deer head coming down here, and then just human body just hanging down there with its arms, and its arms almost look like tusk. With the ways that they're just hanging out there. And every now and again, the head will look up, but all you see of the head is just darkness behind this hood with little tiny glowing eyes inside. It is an amazing design monster. And once you see it, it's not like they hide it. Once you see it, it's there. It's in the film. I mean, a lot of it is still in shadows because they're in the woods and it's dark and this thing is black. So it just kind of blends in with the shadows, but there's moments where, you get the full-on silhouette. There's moments where you get a close-up of the face. I love this creature design. And it is amazing to me that this film has such a good build-up to the reveal of that monster. And it still matches the expectations. It's not a disappointment in any way. So, yeah, this film, I highly recommend it. And again, it's on Netflix. You can watch it at any time that you want. But this film, solid cast of characters. Each of them feel very realistic. Seeing the dynamics between each of them as they start to break down, as the stress boils up inside them. That's another great thing about this film, is how the tension just rises. Not so much with everything that they're seeing, but just within themselves. They're all about to snap because the human psyche can only take so much and they have seen too much. Just seeing like that build up between all of them is so good. The setting is fantastic. I mean, I grew up in the woods, and I looked at this and went, yeah, they went into the woods. This is not on a set. This is really impressive how much they actually filmed out there in the deep woods. Although, again, speaking of somebody who grew up in the woods, I know that you can go like, 5 yards into the woods and it will look like the deep dark woods as long as you don't turn the camera in a certain direction. So yeah, they might have had the safe walking path like right over there, but man, they made this look like just endless forest in there. I kept expecting this to be a Blair Witch situation where they were just trapped in a big circle and they would never be able to escape. But no, I like that they didn't do that. That yes, if they stay on this path, they will survive. But that is a huge risk. They don't know if they can actually do that. There's actually a great line in here where one of them is going, I'm telling you, this was a shortcut. Where one of them says, my old Boy Scout instructor used to say, if a shortcut was a shortcut, it wouldn't be a shortcut, it would be the path. I love that line. And again, it just shows like, even though these characters don't have the biggest personalities, the quips and how they play off each other really does make them feel like real characters who do know each other and have a history with each other. And yeah, this film is gorgeously shot, great locations, and whenever they do have to do special effects stuff, it's great in here. Yeah, I freaking love this film. I don't have a lot else to say about this film because it's just so good. And again, it's on Netflix. I know the vast majority of you own Netflix. Go watch this thing. I remember when I watched it the first time, I thought it was a little bit slow. So that was a complaint that I had. But returning to it this second time, I didn't think it was slow at all. I think this thing had great pacing. I thought it went just beautifully with how smooth everything developed and how everything built up and how we got from point A to point B to point C in this storyline. Yeah, so maybe that is something that now that I went in there remembering it was slow and like prepping myself for that, I was able to enjoy it more. But yeah, the first time that I watched this, I would have given it a B. I would give this thing like an A this time. I know that we don't normally do letters on this film, on this show, but yeah, I really do enjoy this film, and I have nothing else to say aside from how much I like it. But thank you guys for tuning in. We've got 3 more viewer requests to go. Some of these Michelle will actually end up seeing with me. Yes, so it won't just be me talking. I'd like to thank Michelle for staying here and actually interested in everything that I'm saying. So that way, yeah, teamwork. That's how you make 31 goddamn movie reviews when both of us have our own individual lives and other things to do. Sometimes you just gotta sit there in a chair and let your husband go on about the big tree deer monster. Thank you guys for tuning in. Come back the rest of this week, see if your request got picked. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and happy Halloween.
Bye.